Hello, my friends. Welcome to day one. So, today I figured it would be a good place to start by explaining how I got into Ayurveda real quick. So, first I was doing Reiki healing, energy work, getting into that. And as I explored that deeper, I started finding things coming from India talking about the different ways that they work with energy and the Kundalini energy, the different chakras, and how it all came from India. So it kind of just flowed to start studying other things from India. So I wanted to kind of go over that real quick. So, like in India, they call the energy carriers through the body, the subtle body, nadis. And so, yoga and Ayurveda combined, you work to purify these energy, like tubes. I picture them as being like tubes that carry energy through. And so in the purification process, it helps with energy flow. And that's how, the chakras and everything, it kind of starts coming together. So it's really a beautiful system that you can learn about, where you learn a lot about energy and you learn about purification of the body, mind, and spirit. And it's a whole system. So together, Ayurveda and yoga provide a healing system with practical ways of taking care of yourself, which is really why I've been very attracted to it. So in day one of this class, you learn about Prakruti and Vikruti. So everyone, when they're born, you're born made up of a certain percentage of the different elements, right? So there's 5 elements. You have air, ether, water, fire, and earth. So every single person is made up of these elements. And depending on the ratio, that determines what your constitution, your prakruti, your dosha is. And once you figure that out, that's your natural state, your natural balance, right? Where you want to be to feel balanced. So then you learn about the Vikruti, which is your current state of imbalance, which is really important to know, because once you know that, then you can apply Ayurvedic yoga therapy principles to rebalance yourself to get to that perfect state of balance. So that's what you go over in day one. And I really found it to be interesting for me. I learned a lot, even already knowing a lot about nutrition and wellness and things like that. This gave me a different perspective in how to look at things and offer really simple ways of figuring out how to take my own wellness into my hands and really fine-tune things so I can feel my best. Hi, Amy. That's space. So ether is space. And sometimes you'll see it written as space, air and space. So like the Vata dosha is air and space. So if you're predominantly Vata, that means you're predominantly air and space. And then there's like a whole description about those types of people and how to help them bring themselves back into balance. So I have a lot of Vata dosha in my constitution, so I can benefit from a lot of grounding work, a lot of grounding exercises. Then there's the Pitta dosha, which is fire and water. When this comes out of balance, people oftentimes can be fiery, they get indigestion, or they can have irritability. Then there's the Kapha dosha, which is earth and water. They're very usually grounded people, mild-natured, sometimes can be prone to obesity or lethargy type of leaning. So each one of these Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, they're all necessary to maintain balance, right? They each serve their own purpose. So it's not a good or a bad thing that you're any one of these things, right? I know often when we take quizzes and try to do personal development things, we might get into that habit of nitpicking. Well, oh, that dosha sounds better than the one I am. And, just be honest when you're taking these quizzes and looking at yourself, and accept that that's what you are. And each one of these things is necessary to maintain balance. So it's not a negative or a positive, it just is, and approach it that way. From more of an objective viewpoint, how can I help my health and wellness? Learning, and being honest with myself about these things. So yeah, it is interesting. I really like it. So I'll go over briefly the doshas. I don't want to dive too deep because I know that you're learning about it in the class, and I plan on, at some point preparing my own type of class, because I really enjoy teaching people about this because I think it's useful. So generally speaking, the Vata dosha is in need of balance, right? Air and space, Vata is for movement, right? Everything to do with movement, the movement of things through your body, circulation, blood flow. It's always on the move, and it's really important, and it can be thrown out of balance kind of easily. So grounding and balance is really needed for the Vata dosha. And if the Vata dosha is out of balance, that's the one you need to balance first before trying to work on balancing any of the other dosha imbalances. Focus on Vata first. Pitta is in need of relaxation. Pitta as an energy is about transformation. So like the digestive fire in your stomach, how it works with transformation of food into nutrients and things like that. Everything with Pitta is about transformation. So relaxation is really necessary for balance. In Ayurveda, they talk about balancing with the opposite. So if you're feeling like overwhelmed by activity, balance that with a really relaxing activity. If you're in balance because you're eating spicy food, balance that with eating really mild food, right? So address the issue that's causing the imbalance directly using an opposite of some type. So if it's food, use a cooling food if you're too hot and fiery. It's really simple, but then at the same time, it gets really complex in how many ways you can apply it. And then just understanding the principles of the energies on a bigger, deeper level, which is why studying yoga in addition to Ayurveda is really useful. That's why I study both. So the kapha dosha, the third one, is in need of stimulation. So the kapha energy is about stability and cohesiveness. So it has to do with the lubrication of the body and keeping everything cohesive. So it's very steady and slower, which is needed. But if you have this dosha out of balance, you can really benefit from some sort of stimulation. Like if you're in a lethargic state of being, getting out and doing like 20 minutes of physical exercise can be really beneficial for a kapha dosha. The other doshas, not so much. It can throw you out of balance then, because if you're a pitta dosha out of balance and you go do vigorous exercise, it's going to intensify the current imbalance that you have. So knowing yourself is really important, and then being able to look at these principles objectively and where you are at is also really important. You can also be a dual dosha, so you can be like a Vata Pitta, or you could be a Vata Kapha, and you can have two predominant doshas, which is really common. So then you have to look and determine which symptom or which issue you're having that's an imbalance, where it's coming from, so then you can appropriately address the specific dosha that can help rebalance you. You can also be tridoshic, so you can be all three. There's a lot of different quizzes. I've developed a quiz for these things, but I've been using very reputable sources. So you can go online and do quizzes and other than the class that we're doing, and really explore and see what you can find out about yourself. Kapha dosha today. Okay, so you're saying when you took the quiz, so the quiz is for the finding your dosha. You can use them twice. So the first time you take it, if you're on a website or something and you're taking the quiz, keep in mind how you're taking the quiz, because what you're determining, if you're taking it about how you are right now, that means you're taking a Vikruti quiz. So you're taking the quiz with the information you're giving is about your current state of being. Then your result is going to give you the Vikruti, which is your current state of imbalance. If you're taking the quiz with the intention, see, I created 2 separate quizzes, and I'm going to make these available to the people in the group as soon as they're done. So if you're taking the quiz and you think about over your lifetime, right, since you were born, generally speaking, how have you been throughout your life most of the time, then you're going to get the result back as being your Prakruti, which is your constitution, your dosha, what your balance should be. So sometimes the quizzes online can be a little bit confusing if you don't have this little bit of background information. So that way you can appropriately, that's why I'm doing all of this, because I see that there's a little gap where I think that I can improve the communication and the effectiveness of Ayurveda by really explaining this part, so you know when you're taking these quizzes what you're actually getting back and what you're finding out about yourself, right? Sorry, this is really hot. I just made this tea. It has honey in it. It's good, but it's really hot. Okay, so a little bit more about the doshas. The Vata dosha they all have like attributes that relate to them. So the Vata dosha is dry, cool, rough, subtle, unstable, and mobile, right? It's air and space. It's always on the move. The Pitta dosha, oily, sharp, hot, light, intense, spreading, and liquid. So I always imagine Pitta like fire, but it's really fire and water. And then the Kapha dosha, cool, heavy, slow, smooth, soft, dense, stable, and static. So those are the 3 different doshas, and they go into so much detail about how they relate to the human body, and various other things. If you're finding when you're doing these things that you've been one of those people that's very variable, so like if it asks about, I don't know, something that varies over time with your body, or your personality even. If you're just variable, if you go back and forth throughout life, that relates to the Vata dosha always. So if you're variable in one of those categories where they ask you questions, then it's probably a Vata dosha answer, if that makes sense. Okay, Amy, I'm reading your comment. Okay, so if you're taking the quizzes, a dosha quiz online, and it's just saying it's just a dosha quiz, what it's asking you could be used to determine your Prakruti or your Vikruti, depending on how you're thinking of it when you're taking the quiz. So if you're taking the quiz and you're taking it and you're putting in answers about only right now, like it asks you your questions and you're thinking, okay, well, right now in life, this is what I am, this is what I am, this is what I am, this is what I am. Then your answer, your result is going to give you your Vikruti with a V. And that is your current state of imbalance. If you're taking the dosha quizzes and you're thinking in your head, okay, over my entire lifetime, how have I been mostly? Then you're trying to figure out your Prakruti, which is your constitution, And that's kind of what we really need to determine first. So if you go onto some of these websites, I can post some links to some of these Ayurvedic websites that are really good resources that I use. And you can go on those and you can download information, you can read. I went on and, like, let's see, I downloaded a whole bunch of stuff, of course. I'm a downloader. I'm an avid downloader. But I'm also, like, an avid learner. All right. I'll tell you exactly what I use, and then you can go to these resources too and see. So I created, like, on my computer, I created a folder for Ayurvedic yoga, and then I created a subfolder called resources. And so then I download, like, the different things from these places and I throw them in the resources folder. And then I have other folders, I have one for each dosha and then each class that I'm taking. So my folder structure is expansive. But some of the things that I have come from the same place because it's a really great place to get stuff. I just have such a massive amount. All right. You can also evaluate manas, which is your mental constitution. The mental constitution has 3 different options. So you can have, and it's talking about your state of mind. I did a presentation on this. I'm wondering if I should post that presentation, or I might just redo it if people are interested, because working towards a sattvic state of mind is what we should all be trying to add to our wellness system. So you go from tamas to rajas to sattvic with your state of mind. And the tamas state of mind is slow and lethargic and inertia. And the rajas state of mind, that energy is active. And that's when, like, you get stuff done and you're thinking and you're active. That's that state of mind. And the sattvic state of mind is that perfect, peaceful, blissful state of mind that we get to. And being able to increase that part of the state of mind, so you're that state of mind more often, is also something that we work with in Ayurvedic yoga therapy too. Yeah, it's so interesting, Amy. I'm glad that you like this because I found it to be just, like, I don't know, kind of mind-blowing with how much information is out there. It's relatively easy to understand. It does get more and more complex the deeper that you go, but you don't have to go that deep to start making changes to your wellness system, and they really work. So the Ayurvedic Institute is one of the resources I use, and I'll post, throughout the next 10 days, different resources. So with the state of mind, I really like doing, I'll briefly explain the different limbs of yoga so you understand how they all work together. So with yoga, it's 8 limbs. There's yama and niyama, and they have to do with rules of social conduct, right behavior, morals, personal behavior, social conduct kind of things together. Those 2 limbs of yoga are, like, at the very beginning, right? So it talks about being a good person, all these different types of things. And that's where you get started with yoga. And then you incorporate asana. Asana is the yoga physical postures, though. So, like, mostly what we see in the United States with yoga, it's asana, actually. So that's the 3rd limb of yoga. And they all have, like, different deeper meaning. So like yama and niyama, the first two limbs of yoga, they also teach about dharma. So I posted in the group today about dharma. Dharma has to do with purpose, like that feeling of life purpose. And so it addresses that in the first limb of yoga. And that's why I think that yoga is great for personal development, because at the very beginning, the two first limbs of yoga talks about personal behavior, social conduct, morals, life purpose. It's kind of perfect, right? And then asana is the physical exercises, so getting your body moving, getting your mind and your body unified in one with your breath. And that's what you do in asana. You also maintain flexibility, so that way you can sit in meditation. It has a lot of really, it all goes together. Then you get to pranayama, which is the breath work. This is something that really should be waited to start really diving into until you get through some type of purification process of the mind and body. So that's why, you start with the first limbs and then you get to pranayama. By the time you get to pranayama in study, hopefully you've been actively doing these things with the other limbs of yoga to get your body and mind connected and everything purified. So there's also pratyahara, which I really like practicing pratyahara. It's the control of senses. So like different things in meditation, different exercises, or in breath work, different things that you can do there. Or really just, I think people that have anxiety or post-traumatic stress disorder or social anxiety or any type of mental situation where you've had to, just for survival, turn off your senses or turn them down, to not get overstimulated by noise or whatever. I think a lot of us have practiced this, so it comes a lot more naturally to us than we realize. And then putting a name on it that sounds really beautiful too, pratyahara, right? We all practice this sometimes. And so just being consciously aware that we're practicing it, that's one of the limbs of yoga. Then you get to dharana. I hope I'm pronouncing these right. This is right attention or control of the mind. So this one has to do with concentration, developing and extending our power of attention. Then there is dhyana, which is another word for meditation. So meditation is just an amazing practice that I love so much, and it incorporates a couple of the different limbs of yoga. So as you practice, you develop your skills of pratyahara, which is that control of the senses, and the dharana, which is the concentration and attention. So when you're practicing those help you once you get to that, seventh limb of yoga, which is meditation. So we kind of been like jumping way ahead into just doing meditation. I think that teaching all these different limbs kind of give you a foundation, so that way when you do try to do meditation, you're a little bit prepared with all these other skills that you've learned through the other limbs of yoga. The eighth limb of yoga is samadhi, which is total absorption. So this is like that perfectly balanced state, that sattvic state of being that we work for or work towards when we practice all the other limbs of yoga. So that is my little intro to the 8 limbs of yoga. I feel like it's important to understand how all these things work together, because the Ayurveda, the class that we're doing, it teaches about the doshas, it teaches about this, and that. But I think really understanding where it comes from and how it fits into this bigger wellness system is really useful knowledge. So I'm hoping that you guys found it interesting. I'm really passionate about this Ayurvedic yoga therapy because I really think that it can address so many issues with people. And it's something that everybody can do at home, which is really awesome. I'm reading your comment, Amy. I'm blown away. I've always thought it was just go straight to meditation or yoga moves. Right, right. And so did I, right? Because when we don't know what we don't know. And as soon as I found out about this stuff, I'm like, this is useful. This can help so many people. So, you have a million questions. Okay, well, you can fire a couple of them away. I have some time. I'll drink my tea. Hopefully it's cooled off. It is like piping hot. And I have about 800 windows on my computer open because I'm so pumped about being able to bring this information to you guys and give up the weird trying to figure out, well, how can I sell this to people and how can I, and I'm like, I'm just giving up on the whole how can I sell it and rather just figure out how is the best way to give this, because it's to the point where I think it's so important for people to know that yes, I'm donating my time. Yes, I'm donating like all of everything because really I find it to be that important. And so having everybody learn about it and really benefit from it is the whole intention. So I hope you guys are ready to take your wellness into your own hands because you can. So another Ayurvedic practice. I'm waiting for one of your questions, Amy, so I'll just ramble some more information to you. One Ayurvedic practice that's really useful that I have adopted is self-oil massage. So you'll probably read about this or learn about this in this first introductory class, but if not, you can always just research on your own Ayurvedic oil massage benefits, health benefits, and see the different health benefits. But there are so many benefits. So that's one thing that I've done. You might, when you're studying Ayurveda or yoga, run into practices that you're like, this is not for me. That's fine. There's practices that I've learned about that I'm never going to do myself. And so make sure that you're, not ever replacing your current healthcare with Ayurvedic yoga therapy. Ayurvedic yoga is supposed to be in combination with, your regular wellness. So the first chapter lesson. Oh, okay. So once you get your email, I don't think I have that email open, but once you get your email, you'll get access to the class. There's a lecture. So in the Sister Science first class, I think almost all of them, if not all of them, are just audio. So you're going to listen to a lecture. I think it's about 30 minutes long. And I listened to it yesterday to refresh. And then you can download homework. And the homework will take you through that. I did have open. And I closed it. The first homework takes you through and just asks you about your Prakruti and your Vikruti. So by the end of the first lesson, you'll be able to determine your own through the class without having to do like quiz online. You will determine your Prakruti and your Vikruti. So you'll know your current state of imbalance and then your constitution. And it asks you how you can bring it back into balance. So you get enough information to really be able to start applying this to yourself. So that'll be good. This is my school. It's a little Arizona State commercial for you right there. I love my school. Okay, so wow, I think that gives enough information to get you guys started. Amy, if you want, you can send me questions. Um, I'm thinking that maybe tomorrow I'll talk more about manas gunas, so like the state of mind. Um, or really kind of depends on what people are interested in. So if you're interested in learning more about the state of mind, send me like post questions in the group. And then there's also like the whole conversation about prana. So I'm thinking that together in a conversation coming up, we'll talk about prana, we'll talk about energy flow, we'll talk about the nadis, Ida and Pingala. I hope I'm saying those right. And then the Sushumna. And then the Kundalini energy. So the Kundalini energy is something that a lot of people really try to activate. If you see like the one for the mind is that in the homework. I'm not sure, Amy, but I didn't see it in the first chapter, so it might come up in one of the later chapters. If not, that's going to be something that like the Body Owl publishes, because I think that one's really important for mental health. And since I focus so much on the mental stuff, that's going to be a huge one that I put out and teach about myself. So yeah, the Kundalini energy is something that a lot of people really try to awaken the warrior energy. And so we'll definitely talk about that, because that's like a whole separate branch of yoga. It got so popular with the Kundalini and like chakras and stuff like that. So we can go over how people purify the nadis, and that is like once you purify, then you're supposed to be able to move the energy. The energy flow can move and flow once you purify, which you can do using breathwork techniques and yoga positions and things like that. So anywho, I hope you enjoy the first class. Amy, send me some private messages, and that way if you have questions, I can answer them. And then also, if you're having trouble getting into the class or whatever, I can always email you at least the first homework. But if you can't get into the class to listen to the lecture, I don't know, we'll figure it out. So send me a message, and I will touch base with you off camera. Everyone else, I hope that you enjoy when you watch this. I'm sending you good vibes.